So we have nothing for the consent calendar. We're going to move on to departmental reports, and we're going to start with the police report. We have a new presenter, Lieutenant Thomas.
Hello all. I'm going to pull up the PowerPoint and bear with me. The screen.
We've got your screen.
Let me clear this out. Clear that out. And share the screen.
Hey.
You guys see it?
Yep, good.
Awesome. All right, well, I'm just going to start with a little bio real quick so you know who I am. I know you've met me before, but been a police officer for about 29 years, 20 of those years at Carlsbad. Before that, I worked at Oceanside. I actually worked at the Oceanside Harbor Police. Came over here once again about 20 years ago. When I promoted, they asked me where I wanted to go, and the only division I haven't worked for was traffic. So I asked to go to traffic, and here I am. So in a nutshell, that's who I am. So we'll go over some of the things that happened last month in March here in Carlsbad. On the 16th of March, we had a serious injury collision. It was a bicyclist. He was riding downhill westbound on Lacoste Avenue at Aspera Street. He was in the bike lane, but it's downhill. He was going too fast for his ability, got the speed wobbles, fell off of his bicycle, rolled into the street underneath a vehicle that was parked in the center median. Unfortunately, that vehicle was turning leftbound and actually ran this individual over. He did have serious injuries. Most of it was broken bones. He was wearing his helmet, which actually really helped him. But that was really the only serious collision that we had in the month. He's going to be all right. He was on a road bike, just going down the side of the road. So sounds like he's going to be okay. E-bike education for enforcement. We continue to enforce e-bikes on a regular basis. Summer's coming, and our goal always is to try to get enforcement started before summer so we don't have any issues during the summer. I know we've been working on the enforcement, both education and enforcement on e-bikes for a while now. We got a lot of pamphlets in school. Our motor division has worked 2 weekend details on enforcement. And so we'll continue doing it. We're pushing out to patrol, trying to get patrol to do more enforcement. They are. And currently, I got the stats here. For the month of February and March, we wrote 46 citations and warning cites to e-bike cyclists. Most of them really has to do with riding on the wrong side of the road, juveniles not wearing helmets. Those are kind of the big ones. So we're continuing the enforcement on that, and we'll continue that all summer. We had a protest actually on March 21st. It was Stop the Asian Hate March. They gathered up at 300 CVD underneath the Carlsbad sign, and they were going to march to Cannon Park. We haven't had one in a while, but this one, they weren't exactly sure how many. They were expecting maybe 300 to 400 people. We weren't too sure. We were kind of keeping an eye on social media on that. They actually had about 250 that showed up, and our goal on this was to have them stay on the sidewalk. They wanted to stay on the sidewalk. That was their goal. That's what they told all the participants. We decided, because of the size of the crowd, that we're going to move them over to the southbound sidewalk on the boulevard between 300 CVD and Cannon Park. And the reason for that is if it got too big and they had to go out in the street, it was easier for us to close off the southbound lanes of Carlsbad Boulevard than it would have been to close off the northbound lanes. So we did move them over there. They stayed on the sidewalk for the most part for a little while. The problem with that is people walking on the sidewalks had to go out on the street and walk in the streets, which pushed the cyclists out into the lanes. And then it just got so big, they were starting to walk in the street. So we just decided that we're going to close off Carlsbad Boulevard. So we completely closed it off from downtown to Cannon Park and then they all moved out of the street at that point. We got moved over to Cannon Park. Once they moved over there, we were able to open up the street again. So we didn't have any major issues. It was probably only closed down for at most maybe a half hour, 25 minutes. Wasn't that bad. Got them safely over to the park. They did not march back. They either had somebody come pick them up or they left in smaller groups back downtown. So we didn't have any issues going back. So that's the first one we had in a while. We just really used a couple of patrol personnel, our motor division, and a couple overtime bodies, and we were able to handle it pretty good. We didn't have any issues with that one either. And the schools opened back up on March 29th to full time. So our crossing guards are back full time. Our motors are back enforcing and driving around the schools more regularly. We are getting a few issues with just more traffic around the schools. So we're pushing that down to patrol also to ask them to extra patrol before and after school. Really started last week, so we haven't heard of any issues other than that, other than more e-bikes are out now because they're riding their bikes to school. So we are having our motors also do extra patrol in that also. So that's all I have. Yeah, stop sharing here. Does anybody have any questions? All right.
I see, Vice Chair. So Commissioner Pensier mentioned that you will talk about the age limit for Class 3 bikes.
Correct. Christy was kind of following up on that. I think the email was from Christy regarding that, but to ride those, you have to be 16. It's my understanding if you ride the slower bikes, you still have to wear a helmet if you're underage, but you can ride it at a younger age than 16. 16, I think, is the Class Cs. So
okay. So can you educate us a little bit? What is a Class 3 bike versus the other ones?
It has to do with the speed and the size of the motor. And so the slower bicycles that go between is Class A, B, and C, I believe. And Class A goes between 15 and up to 20 or whatever it might be. And B is a little bit faster than that. The C are the ones that can go, I believe, up to 35 miles an hour. They are just a bigger motor. They go faster and they're more dangerous. And that's why that requires you to be 16 years old to ride a Class C, but you do not have to be 16 to ride a Class A or B. But anyone under 18 does have to wear a helmet on any bike that they're on.
And how do parents that buy these bikes, how would they know?
When you buy the bike, they should have the rules when you buy the bikes, and hopefully they're doing their research on those bikes. That was a question that we had as officers. It's hard for us to see if we see a bike riding down the road that we wouldn't be able to tell by just looking at it if it's A, B, or C. And we can't always stop somebody just because we want to find out what class bike that they're riding. So we sometimes wouldn't even know until we pull them over. So it would be up to the parents to read the manual, the owner's manual on the bike, to see what type of bike they're buying and to know the rules when they allow their kids to ride them.
Okay. I'm wondering how we can spread that information. Yes, Commissioner Pensier?
So when you've pulled these e-bike riders over, it's been for some other reason then, perhaps riding against traffic or, um, riding on the sidewalks and stuff.
Yeah, we get a lot riding on the sidewalk. We get a lot riding against traffic. We get a lot riding through intersections that have red lights.
Right.
So those are usually the reasons we pull them over. Not always because of the helmet, because unless it's obvious they're underage, you won't always know that. But it would be for some type of a violation for the vehicle code, usually. Or dangerous, just being dangerous on the bikes.
Right. Yeah, and that's probably the best way to enforce that class 3 thing is they have the ability to go much faster. So that's how you tell. I mean, if they're riding them slowly, then it doesn't really matter as far as safety is concerned.
Yeah, and most of the bikes are A and B, class A and B. There aren't a lot of speed that we've noticed.
The other part of that is the class 3s can go that fast with the throttle only. They don't even have to pedal.
Yeah.
So they're basically motorcycles, electric
Yes,
car.
Class 2 also. I just put it out there. If you guys want me to jump in real quick,
Yeah.
Class 1 is a low-speed pedal-assisted bike. So it has a motor, but it only assists the pedaling. It can't go by itself. Class 2, and it'll only go up to 20 miles an hour. Class 2 will only go up to 20 miles an hour, but the motor can propel it without the person pedaling. Class 3 can go up to 28 miles an hour and has to be equipped with a speedometer. And the motor can do it without the pedaling also. And yeah.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Hunter. So for the public that's watching this, if anyone is concerned, the city is actually working with the school district, and we're hoping to also work with the police department to get some mandatory training or education in the schools for the kids and obviously the parents, because I don't think a lot of people really think about the laws and what it takes and how dangerous these are on the road. So just so you know, it's coming. We'll work over the summer when the school district is less busy since they just started school again. But more will come. We'll try to get more education to the parents and the students in our city. So with that, do we have any other comments on the police department or any questions? Vice Chair Perez.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Lieutenant Thomas, thank you, and nice to meet you. Just a couple of questions in regards to the e-bikes with the age limit. Are we seeing a lot of enforcement or education with our youth in regards to not wearing helmets? I guess my questions are we seeing a rise of kids riding these e-bikes without helmets?
I don't think that we're riding or seeing a lot of the kids without helmets. I think most of the issues that we're having is just being unsafe on the bikes, but not necessarily without helmets. I personally, a lot of kids that I see are wearing helmets, so I don't think that's a big issue.
Yeah, and then are we seeing any e-bike versus pedestrian on sidewalks or anything like that? Is that a concern right now, or have we not seen any rises in that? I guess what I'm saying is the e-bikes riding on the sidewalks and maybe being distracted or having an accident with a pedestrian or anything like that.
Yeah, I don't personally know of any collisions between e-bikes and pedestrians. We do get a lot of calls for them from pedestrians or at least citizens complaining about e-bikes on the sidewalk, and we do see that. We do stop them, but I have not seen one TC where it involved a e-bike and a pedestrian. They could have been out there. There could have been some even before I came into the traffic unit, but I haven't seen any since I've been in there.
Okay, thank you. And then the last question I have, since the high schools and middle schools for Carlsbad School District are starting up, I believe the high schools, there are lunch giveaways that are, I think, set at Carlsbad High. I'm just wondering if that's still ongoing and if there's any traffic issues, because I know that during the summertime or for children that are, I believe, online, there's access for meals at the high school. So, and there's a little like traffic way to get through to get your meal. I was just wondering if there's any, if we know that if that meal route is still open or if it's been closed down. I guess in just regards to traffic, in the area.
Yeah, I haven't heard, I'm not exactly sure, I can look into that, but I haven't heard one way or another about that.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Linky?
One thing I see with e-bikes is there'll be like a passenger sitting on the back with their legs spread out so they don't get in the wheels. Is that an issue? Is that legal? I don't want to ruin kids' fun or anything, but that concerns me. And then the one second thing is I live very close to where that bicycle accident happened that you described at the beginning. I'm just like a couple blocks away. And we have that same hill that's very steep. And with the wide tires, I think the kids feel comfortable going really fast. So when they're going, even though the bicycle motor may only go up to 20 miles an hour, they can go down that hill probably greater than 30 miles an hour. I see them like kind of racing down, not on the Costa, but on the side street, Del Rey. So I guess my questions are, is it legal to have somebody on the back, and what can we do about maybe excessive speeds down hills?
Passengers on the bikes, that's a good question on the e-bikes, especially. I know that most of them have racks and the kids are sitting on the racks or the passengers sitting on the racks. So I will look into that and I'll let you know. That's a good question. Regarding the speed on hills, I don't know what you can really do about the speed on the hills. Obviously, it's not the only hill in the city. And I know that when they're coming down on Chestnut, for example, towards the downtown area, they're using the hills there and they're probably going quicker than the bikes can, but staying within the speed limit. So I don't know really what we can do other than it's the same, it would be enforcement and education on if we see e-bikes especially, and at least anyone under 18 on e-bikes going faster than they're allowed to go. Probably not much you can do if they're adults because they're allowed to. The one thing with the serious collision was it was a road bike, so it was the thinner tires rather than the big tires on the e-bikes, which you have more control, but it's still dangerous if you're going too fast. You can't control your bike. So yeah, I'll look into the passengers on the e-bikes, especially if you're under 18. My guess would be that you can be a passenger on an e-bike if you're an adult. I don't know about a juvenile or what class bike, if that makes a difference also, but I'll look into that.
Okay, thanks. It just looks kind of unstable on the back there, sitting on top of the wheel. They're just kind of flying around back there.
Yeah, I'll look into that. I'll let you know.
Commissioner Pensier, one more question. You're muted.
There we go.
You
Okay.
have to unmute.
I had provided Lieutenant Calderwood with some cards which have a Q code on there for people to sign up for bike safety classes, which we teach every month in North County. And so there's a class tomorrow night. And I'm wondering if that was passed along to you, and if the motor officers or even the bike police have those cards available, so that if they stop somebody and they don't want to give them a citation, they can give them one of the cards and say, hey, if I ever catch you doing this again, and you don't take this class, then you will get a citation. So give them a warning instead of a citation that their parents are going to be upset about. Is that something that that's been passed along and that all your officers know about?
Well, my guess is if that was a program that started with Chrissy, she did start that program. Mm-hmm. So I would say yes. I haven't heard about it. It's a great idea, and I'll ask her working today, so I'll call her after this and find out. But my guess is if she started the program, then all the motors do have them, they do pass them out. A lot of our initial contacts were, especially for the first couple of months, were education, and that's when we would pass those out anyway. But lately we've been doing more enforcement, so they've been getting tickets instead of warnings.
Okay, well, we kept you busy. Okay, and we have Engineer Kim.
Just wanted to ask Commissioner Pensiers a question. Does your classes include the operation of electric bikes, e-bikes?
You muted
I know.
yourself. You need to unmute.
Okay. The classes are aimed at all cyclists. So, as far as we're concerned, it doesn't matter whether it's got a motor or not. It's bike safety class. And we just simply point out the differences between the different classes of bikes. And then we talk about the facilities the different kinds of bike facilities that are available and which ones you can use the higher speed bikes on. For example, the class 3 bikes are not allowed on class 1 paths. The other bikes are. So, you can ride class 1 and class 2 on the San Luis River Trail and on the Coastal Rail Trail, but not the class 3s.
Are you seeing an increase in e-bike users enrolled in your class at all?
We have, well, we can't tell when they take the classroom. And we've only held one road session. We just started them up. We had one last month. And we did have a family of 3 from Carlsbad, but they were all road bikes. But we've been teaching people on e-bikes for several years. And again, it's most of the time people get hurt. It's not a result of them getting hit by a car. It's a solo fall, like the one that Lieutenant Thomas just described. That's far more common than the car bike crashes. Motorists if they see a cyclist, they'll do anything they can to avoid hitting them, and then they're usually pretty good at it. So so that's what we teach. We just teach be visible, and you're going to be okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Pensiers.
That's good to know, Commissioner Pensier, because I always feel people have this feeling that it's actually the motorists that are a danger to the cyclist. So it's good to know that if they're visible and they're careful, they have a higher chance of not getting in an accident. Okay, well, thank you, Lieutenant. We kept you busy a little bit. Usually we're pretty brief with this item one, but this one lasted a little longer because it is an issue. E-bikes are new and we have to adapt, that's for sure. We got to make sure that we educate our public, our parents, our students